Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek and welcome back to my channel. So today we are at day 15 of our complete DevOps course. So in the previous class, that is day 14, we talked about the theory of configuration management, what is configuration management, why Ansible has become a key player. We tried to compare it with Puppet, and like we talked about various other things as well regarding Ansible. So it was completely a theoretical discussion, and today's topic we'll try to cover the practical knowledge of Ansible. Perfect. So let's start from the basics, right from the basics. So what I've done is I just created an EC2 instance. Like it's your choice. If you have a Linux machine already, you can proceed with it. But if you are a first timer, let's say you're learning Ansible for the very first time, I would definitely recommend you to start with a Linux machine, not Windows or Mac. The reason for that is things will be much easier when you start doing on Linux, but it's fine. I mean, if you don't have a Linux machine and if you can't create for some reasons a Linux machine on EC2 instance, then yeah, you can also try with your Mac or Windows. Okay, so what is the first thing that you'll need to do? So the very first thing that you need to do is to install Ansible, right? Definitely. To try any tool, you need to start with the installation of the tool. So let me show you how to install Ansible in the very first case. So there are a lot of documentations which talks about installation of Ansible, right? You can go to the official Ansible docs as well. So if you see here, this is the official Ansible docs. You can also install Ansible from here. But what I would recommend you is depending upon your distribution that you have installed. Like for example, if you see here, this is a Ubuntu machine that I created from AWS. This is a EC2 instance that I launched. So similarly, like you might have launched a CentOS one or any other thing. So it comes with a default package manager, right? So for example, in terms of Ubuntu, I get apt. So what you can typically do is start with sudo apt update. Okay, sudo is because for running any apt commands, you would need root privileges. So that's why you have to prefix it with sudo. So sudo apt update. Okay, as you do that, your all the packages will be updated. So this is definitely this is something that you have to definitely do for the first time as you install your EC2 instance. So once you do it, okay, so I have already done it. So it took slightly less time, but in your case, it might take a little more time. Don't worry about it. Once you do it, you can simply do this sudo apt install Ansible. Okay. So this will install Ansible for you. In my case, like I told you, it is already installed and it is set to the newest version. So app did not do anything, but in your case, once you run this command, it would install Ansible for you. Okay. Isn't it so simple? Like you can go to the official Ansible documentation and try things as well. But like I told you, sometimes it becomes tricky because this documentation is a very generic one. So how does it do it? Basically installs Python for you, then it installs pip for you, and using pip it installs Ansible. So the reason for that is basically they wanted to keep the documentation as generic as possible, irrespective of Windows, Linux, Mac, or everything. Because you are doing it through Python, the installation would work. But the easiest way is to use your package manager, because all your package managers have Ansible as your packages. So even if you're on Mac, you can simply do brew install Ansible. If you are on Windows, you can do chocolate install Windows. So definitely go with your own package manager so that it is added by default to the path as well. Whereas if you're doing using this Python pip, sometimes you also have to add it to your path. Okay, if your Python is configured in a different location. Okay, so we are done with the first things, that is to install Ansible. Verify it using this command Ansible hyphen hyphen version. So as I do Ansible hyphen hyphen version, you can clearly see that it mentions that Ansible is properly installed. Okay, okay, makes sense. So what is the next thing that you have to do? The next thing is using Ansible. Once I mean, you want to start playing with Ansible, right? So to start playing with Ansible, you would need one more server. Yeah, I mean, in the minimum, you would need two servers. That is, this server has Ansible, and to practically explain, okay, you need one more server so that you can configure the other server using this Ansible server, right? So that's the reason why I have created two servers. Okay, so this is the Ansible server that we have currently logged in, and this is the target server. Okay, let me increase the font. So this is the target server. So what I'll do is using this Ansible server, I'll configure the target server. Okay. So if you see both of them are Ubuntu. So that's the reason I named it as target Ubuntu machine. But irrespective of it, you can create anything. Okay. It doesn't matter. Like I mentioned in the previous class as well, all that Ansible requires is a passwordless authentication. So if Ansible can authenticate without any password to these machines, so Ansible can do anything. Okay, it can configure anything on that server. Okay, so I have two servers. No, firstly I'll show you how to set up passwordless authentication, right? Because as I told you, the prerequisite is Ansible should be able to communicate this server without any password. So for that, let's see how to do that. Okay, so go to this instance. I mean, just click on this instance. You will get the private IP address like you see here. So this is the private IP address. Always talk to the private IP address, because both of them are in the same VPC, right? And both of the instance are in EC2. Uh, I mean, or on AWS. So use the private IP address. It will be very easy. So copy this private IP address and let me show you if I do SSH to it. Okay. So let me SSH to the private IP address. It will ask for the password because I haven't configured any passwordless authentication yet, because I want to show it to you from the scratch. Okay. So if you follow any documentations, sometimes people will confuse you because there are multiple ways to configure passwordless authentication. But the easiest way, okay, so some documentations might talk about SSH copy ID. Okay, so SSH copy ID is one way of doing it. Just enter SSH copy ID and provide the IP address of the target server and everything will be set. Yes, SSH copy ID is the easiest one, but what happens is sometimes the SSH copy ID does not have enough permissions to do it for you. So that's why I'll show you a very easy way. Okay, and if you have any questions to this way, always like I always mention you, put your questions in the comment section. I'll definitely answer, but I'll explain you in a very straightforward way, so I'm pretty sure you shouldn't get any questions. So on the Ubuntu user, what you will do is simply type SSH hyphen keygen. Okay, what SSH hyphen keygen will do for you is it will generate a key for you, right? That's why it's called SSH hyphen keygen. What is a key? It will generate a public private IP. Okay, so that means it will create a public key and it will create a private key. So is it asking? It is asking, is this location fine? Home ubuntu.ssh id rsa. Yeah, it's okay for me. It says that you already have something. Can I overwrite? No problem. Okay, in your case you might not have it already. Okay, then enter. So what happens is, once you do this, there is a set of files, that is your public key, private key, known host file, that is stored in this specific location. So this directory gets created and there are bunch of files that are stored in this directory. Okay, so /home /ubuntu.ssh. So how are these things created? Basically these things are created using the command called ssh-keygen. Okay, so you can enter SSH hyphen keygen on your machine, and after that you get ID RSA PUB. So this is your private key and this is your public key. So private key is used to log into this machine, and private key is something that you should never share with anybody. Okay, so what is that you need to share? If somebody says that, okay, let's communicate with each other, always go with the public key. So what we will try to do is, like I told you, we will try to talk to this target server, okay, from this Ansible server in a passwordless way. Okay, so we don't want to authenticate using the password. So for that reason, what I'll do is I'll take this public key. Okay, cat public key. Sorry, I'm not in that directory. So what I can do, cat followed by this location followed by ID underscore RSA dot pub. Okay, so this is my public key. Let me copy this public key. Okay, and once I copy this public key, what I will do is again log into your second machine. Okay, that is your target server. So take a new tab. Okay, and I'm already logged in here. Let me also increase the font for this one. Okay, I hope the font size is good. So this is the other other server or the target server. If you see the IP address 172.31.62.28. Okay, now what I will do is just do the SSH keygen here as well. Okay, once you do the SSH keygen here as well, okay, it will again create the same set of files. So if you do ls.ssh, so you'll see here that you have authorized keys, private key and public key. Okay, makes sense. So now what you'll do is just open the authorized, okay, authorized keys. In the authorized keys, what you need to do is the one that you copied here, right? So you opened the ID RSA PUB, copied the content and then paste the content here. Okay, so just paste the content from here to here and just save this file. Now let me see what happens. Okay, I'll execute the SSH command one more time. Okay, SSH followed by the IP address here. Okay, this is the IP address. Let me do SSH to the target server. Enter. Awesome. What happened? I was able to authenticate without any password, right? If you see here clearly, I did not give any password. I just said SSH. Okay, up arrow. I just did SSH, the IP address of the target server, and as I do SSH, I am able to connect to the target server without any password. So this is the prerequisite for your Ansible, right? So prerequisite for Ansible is you need to have a passwordless authentication. And how did I set up the passwordless authentication? In simple terms, like if I have to explain it in one single line, what I did is I just copied the public IP address of the Ansible server to the authorized keys of the target servers. Let's say you'll have one more server. Okay, if you have one more server, what you will do, let's say we have a CentOS server. Okay, so again you will follow the same steps. Like now you already have the public key, so you don't have to do SSH keygen. What you will do is you'll just copy the public key and you will create the CentOS server, open the CentOS server, that means SSH to the CentOS server in a new terminal, and open the authorized keys and paste your public key in the authorized keys of your CentOS server. Then Ansible will be able to communicate, or the Ansible host will be able to communicate to that target server in a passwordless authentication way. Awesome. I hope the things are very clear till now. Okay, what did we do? First step, we installed Ansible, and second step, we set up the passwordless authentication with Ansible. Now we are half done. Okay, so these are the two things that are important, and once you do these two things, we are almost 50% done, because rest all things are pretty easy. I'll show you. We can write Ansible playbook in no time. Don't worry about it. So again, Ansible, perfect. Ansible is installed. Now, before writing Ansible playbooks, okay, what is Ansible playbook? So Ansible playbook is nothing but, let's take example of shell. Okay, in shell scripting, you will write a file. Okay, and what do you call that file? You call that file as a shell script file, right? If you are writing in Python, you call them as a Python files. So similarly, in Ansible, instead of calling them as Ansible files, we usually call them as playbooks. That's it. Okay, so whenever somebody is asking you, have you written any Ansible playbooks, that means have you written any Ansible files? Okay, but is it mandatory to always write Ansible playbooks? Okay, so like for example, if you're taking about shell, so sometimes you might only have to run some basic shell commands. Like for example, if I have to list some files, I can simply do ls-ltr as well, right? I can simply do ls-ltr and it listed the files here. For that, do I always have to write this shell script saying that, okay, script.sh, and in the script.sh, I'll say shebang followed by /bin/bash and ls-ltr and then run this file? Is it required? No. So you can also run the shell commands. Similarly with Python, you don't have to write Python scripts all the time and execute the Python scripts, right? You can simply say Python 3 and here you can write some commands and your commands can get executed. Ansible also supports something similar. Okay, so my main intention to explain all of these things is you don't have to write playbooks all the times. Okay, you can also run Ansible commands from the CLI. Okay, so it depends on the task that you are doing. Because the reason why I'm explaining is I have seen people writing playbooks even for simple tasks. So look, for example, okay, this is my Ansible server. Okay, sorry, this is my Ansible server and this is my target server. Let's say the task is to just create some files on this target server. Okay, so using Ansible, your requirement that you got from your team is that, okay, please use Ansible and create some files in 100 target servers. But in our case, right now we just have one target server. I'll also show you with more target servers. Don't worry about it. So we just have one target server. Okay, uh, the task is just create some files on the target server. This is a very simple task, right? So for this simple task, I don't want to write a playbook. What is the other way? So you can, like I told you, you can simply run some Ansible commands as well. It's not always you have to do playbooks. So in Ansible terminology, it is called as Ansible ad hoc commands. Okay, so let me show you, before writing playbooks, how to run Ansible ad hoc commands. So to run Ansible ad hoc commands, what you can do is, okay, Ansible followed by the inventory file location. Like if you followed my yesterday's class, I explained what is an inventory file. Inventory file is nothing but it's a file which stores your IP addresses of the target servers. Like for example, I created an inventory file here. Let me open this file and show you. Okay, cat inventory. What did I do? I just added the IP address of my target server. Like this is my target server, and I just added the IP address of the target server in the inventory file. Okay, so this inventory file can be anywhere. Okay, by default, Ansible stores the inventory file in /etc/Ansible/host. This is the default file, but it's not always convenient to use it from here. So whenever you write your playbooks or whenever you run your Ansible ad hoc commands, you can store the inventory file in the same location as well. So that's the reason why I stored the inventory file here. If I have 10 servers, what I need to do is I can simply open the inventory file and append the IP address of 10 servers. Perfect. So Ansible -i, the location of the inventory file or the name of the inventory file, followed by the IP address. Okay, what is the IP address of your target server? If you have one target server, you can provide one target server. If you have 100 target servers, you can group them in the inventory file and you can provide the name of the group. I'll also show that, don't worry. Okay, so because I just have one target server, I can simply say this one. Or there is also another thing that Ansible supports is just say all. Okay, so by saying all, it means everything in the inventory file, all the servers in the inventory file. Okay, so Ansible -i inventory all -m, that stands for module. Now you might get a question that, okay, Abhishek, how do you know what is the module? I'll show you that as well, don't worry. -a, just create a file. Okay, touch test or touch DevOps class. Just run this simple command. Okay, I'll explain you the order of this simple command, what I'm doing in this simple command, what is a module in Ansible, what is this -a, which stands for arguments. Okay, don't worry about it, but before that, just run this simple command and see what happens. Okay, so what happened is Ansible gave you that, okay, it changed something, and this yellow line means that everything is good. So if you have any errors, you will get some red color lines which indicates that there are some errors. Now let's go to the target server and see if the file is created, ls-ltr. Okay, if you see here, DevOps class, and when is it created? Right now. Okay, so I just created the file. So what did I do? I used the Ansible. Yeah, so I use the Ansible ad hoc command. So is it very simple? Right. It is very, very simple. And why will you write a playbook? You will write a playbook only when you want to execute set of these commands. Okay, so here there is only one command that I wanted to execute on the target server, right? Or there is only one task that I wanted to perform on the target server. So for performing this one or two tasks, you can always go with the Ansible ad hoc commands. Similarly with shell as well, right? If you want to perform one or two shell commands, you can directly execute that one or two commands. For example, if I want to just say ls-ltr and find the size of each file. Okay, so what I would do, I would simply do this, right? ls -ltr, and if there are 10 folders, I would see the size of this 10 folders using du-sh. I don't have to create a shell script for this. Similarly, if you want to execute one or two Ansible commands or one or two tasks using your Ansible on your target servers, always go for ad hoc commands. The reason why I'm stressing this is many interviewers ask these questions. What is the difference between Ansible ad hoc commands versus Ansible playbook. Okay, so the difference is that Ansible ad hoc command for one or two tasks, Ansible playbook is for multiple commands. Perfect. I hope the things are clear till now. Okay, what did we do? We installed Ansible, then we configured the passwordless authentication with Ansible, and we also executed Ansible ad hoc commands to create some files, or to execute some tasks on the target server. This is amazing, right? So we did already three different things on Ansible in no time. Now, the question here is, okay, I know many people are getting this question here that, okay, how do you know what is this module called shell? And how do you know what are the arguments to pass? Don't worry about it. Nobody knows everything because there are thousands of modules in Ansible. So you can simply open your browser and search for Ansible modules. Okay, this is something that everybody does. Okay, don't worry about it. Click on all modules because day in day out Ansible keeps updating the modules, because every day there is so much contribution that is happening to Ansible. Then so people keep adding commands to Ansible, people keep updating the commands to Ansibles. So always go to the documentation and you want to just create a file. Okay, so I know that using shell you can create. So this is a shell module, execute shell commands on the targets. So what I did is I just looked into the documentation and I understood from the documentation, oh, okay. So Ansible supports something called as shell commands, and using the shell command, I can create some files. Okay, that is what I did. And Ansible also provides you examples, like, here in this case, Ansible told you that, okay, if you want to write a playbook, this is the YAML syntaxing that you want to follow. But what we did, we just did one single command. So that's the reason why I did it through Ansible ad hoc commands. So -m stands for modules and -a stands for what is the command that you wanted to execute, right? For example, let me change this and show you. You can execute any shell commands. Let me see what is the number of processes on the target server. So what I did, I just said nproc, and it said that, okay, the target server has only one CPU. Let me see df. Okay, so df is to identify what is the disk, right? So disk usage and everything about your disk. So I got the output using df. Perfect. So this is how you can modify the ad hoc command arguments. And you can also do many other things, like you can copy files from this server to the other server using the ad hoc command. Like if you want to see that, just come here in the Ansible module section, just search for copy. Okay, so see what are the different copy things that Ansible is providing. So it said that, okay, so there is an argument called copy, there is a module called copy. Okay, so I understood from here, what I'll do is I can replace this module from shell to copy. Okay, and I need to understand what are the arguments. That's it. So here you can directly jump to the example and see what are the arguments. So for the copy, these are the different arguments that are passed. Okay, so simply what I can do is in -a, I can replace these arguments. Like I can say simply src colon, what is the location? I can provide the location of the file. After that, I can say destination. Right now, I'm just showing it to you how to do it. Okay, and then provide owner details if they are required and all of those things. So this is how you will learn Ansible ad hoc commands. So I showed you one command. You can try different things, like you can try copy, you can try scp, you can try deleting files on your target server. So try all of them by your own. Now let us see what happens when you have multiple servers. Right now I just showed you with one server. What I did is I added that to the inventory file, and I showed you using executing uh, this way, right? So for example, I said all. What if there are two different servers? Okay, and one set of servers is your teams and one set of server is other teams. Or let's understand this way, one set of servers are DB servers, okay, database related servers, and the other set of servers are web servers. Okay, so there is a use case that run certain number of playbooks only on the DB servers and run certain number of playbooks only on the web servers. Okay, so if that is the requirement, what you can simply do is that in your inventory file, okay, open the inventory file, and in the inventory file you can do grouping of your servers. Okay, so here you can simply mention as DB servers, This is just for an example. And here you can mention as web server. So the brackets are very important. Okay, you have to definitely use the brackets. Let's say I have web servers with an IP address 172.31.62.100. Okay, so now if I have to execute the Ansible commands only on the web servers, what I can do is, instead of all, I can simply say web servers. So what will happen is Ansible will go to the inventory file. It will look into the inventory file. It will see what are the list of web servers. Okay. And it will execute the Ansible commands on the list of web servers. If there is one web server, it will execute on one web server. If there are 100 web servers, it will execute on 100 web servers. That means the group of machines that are under the name called web servers. So this is another interview question for you. So the question is that, how do you group the servers in Ansible, or how can you execute certain number of tasks only on certain number of virtual machines using Ansible? So for that, the answer is that in Ansible, everything is configured in inventory file. All the server names and server details are configured in the inventory file. You can do grouping of your servers in the inventory file and tell Ansible that, okay, execute this playbook or run this Ansible command only on certain number of servers, or execute only it on web servers, or execute only it on DB servers, right? Are things clear till now? Perfect. Okay, so now let's see how to write Ansible playbook. Okay, so the reason I told you is to write Ansible playbook is when you want to execute multiple tasks. So let me take a scenario. Okay, so the scenario here is we want to install Nginx. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to start Nginx. Okay, so let's say this is the task. You want to install Nginx and you also want to start Nginx. So for this, what you need to do is you want to write a playbook. Perfect. So let me call it as first hyphen playbook. And in which format is Ansible playbooks written? They are written in the YAML format. Okay, so that's why we'll say Ansible playbook.yaml. Perfect. So to start writing Ansible playbook, don't worry, I'll definitely keep it very easy for you guys. Okay, so to start writing Ansible playbook, just start with 3 hyphens. Okay, so the 3 hyphens indicates that this is a YAML file, and after that what you'll do is you'll start explaining about your playbook. That is, what is the name of your playbook. Okay, so the name of the playbook, let's say, is to install and start Nginx. Okay, so after that, what you will do is you will provide the list of hosts where this playbook has to run. Okay, so to provide these details, like I told you, we usually group the servers in the inventory file. And if you want to execute in all of them, so just provide the server names as all. So when you provide the server names as all, then it simply gets executed on all the servers in your inventory file. Okay, once that is done, so there are two cases. One is, do you want to execute this playbook using the same user, or do you want to execute this playbook using the root user? What do I mean by that? So there are some times where you want to run this playbook as root user. That is because let's say you want to install Nginx. So if I go to the other server and show you, if I do something like apt install Nginx, what will happen is it will tell you that, okay, unable to acquire DPK package logs. That is because you are not a root user. So what you usually do is you use sudo, right? So you use sudo and then you add the command. That is because you want to execute this command as a root user. Similarly, if you want to do something similar on Ansible, you have to use something called as become root. Okay, so what this become root does is it will execute your Ansible playbooks as a root user. Perfect. Once this is done, you will start writing the tasks. Okay, so in YAML, the syntaxing might look difficult for you for the very first time, but once you start writing, it's not that difficult. Okay, so what we did here, we started with 3 hyphens, which indicates that this is YAML file, and then we use this hyphen to start the playbook. That means this hyphen indicates that, it's a list. So you are going to provide list of playbooks. You can write one playbook in a file, or you can also write multiple playbooks in a file. So in my case, I can only write, I only want to write one playbook. So that's why I said, okay, let me start this one playbook. And if I have multiple playbooks, what I need to do is I can also do this. Okay, hyphen name and my second playbook. Okay, but don't worry about it. Now we are writing only one playbook here. So we started with the name of the playbook. Then we told in which files or on which servers this playbook has to be executed. So that is the host which takes from the inventory file. So I put here as all, so that all the servers in the inventory file gets executed. Then I use the become command. So what become does is it will allow you to execute it as a root user, or you can also use something called as become underscore user, and you can provide any user that you want to use. Perfect. So now inside the task, again, whenever you have list of tasks, okay, whenever you have list of something in YAML, what you need to do is you have to start with hyphen, okay, which indicates that, okay, so there are list of things that you wanted to do. So my first task would be, again, provide the name of the task. Always describe your task using name. Okay, so install Nginx. So this would be my first task. And what is the command I would use? Okay, so apt. So in either you can do this, okay, shell, and you can say apt install Nginx. So that is also quite possible. This is something that we learned, right? So we use the shell command, we use the shell module, and I said apt install Nginx. You can also do this, or Ansible by default provides a module for apt. So you can also do this. Like, you can say apt followed by name. What is the name of the module that you want to use? So I want to use, I want to install Nginx. So provide the detail as Nginx, and then you say state is present. That means to install. So this command is exactly equivalent to shell followed by apt install Nginx, and it will also start the Nginx. So for that we'll write a new task, but okay. So shell apt install Nginx and apt name Nginx state present, both are the same things. Now you can ask me, okay, if both of them are same, why do I have to run this one? Okay, to keep it more generic. Okay, so whenever you want to run a certain number of tasks on Ubuntu, okay, always go with the package manager, because sometimes when you are writing the shell commands, you might miss some things. Whereas if you are using the apt, which is a package manager module that Ansible is providing, things will be much easier. And even tomorrow, if the shell command is changed or something, you can always rely on this Ansible module that is provided by the Ansible. Perfect. Apt name is Nginx, state is present. This is task number one. And how do I write the task number two? Again, match the syntax here. Okay, match the indentation here, and in the indentation use another hyphen and write your second task. What is my second task? The second task is to start Nginx. So the first task that I've written is to install Nginx, and the second task that I've written is to start Nginx. And to start Nginx, again, what you can do, there are two options here. One is you can say shell, and you can say systemctl start Nginx, or this is one possible way, or again, like I mentioned above, Ansible provides a module, okay, that is called as a service module. Okay, using the service module, you can say what is the name of the service, that is Nginx, followed by what is the state. So the state here is started. So I want to have my service in started state. That's it. So our playbook is done. We wrote our first playbook. Isn't it very simple? So to write our first playbook, what did we do? We started with three hyphens. Okay, the three hyphens indicate that this is a YAML file, and then we started to explain what this playbook is. Okay, and why did we use this hyphen here? The hyphen here is to indicate that there can be list of playbooks. Okay, and this is my first playbook. Okay, so in the first playbook, what you are doing is you are explaining install and start Nginx, and what are the hosts against which this has to get executed. So this has to get executed against all the hosts. in the inventory file. Then become root. What does this become root does is this become root will switch the user to root because we wanted to execute some package manager related commands. If you just want to execute everything through the Ubuntu user, let's say your Ubuntu user has permissions to do everything, then you don't have to use this line in your playbook. Okay, once you provide all of these details, then you go with your actual task. Okay, in the actual task you explain, okay, what is the first task and what is the second task. So in the first task I provided install nginx. Okay, so I wanted to install nginx as the first one, and then I wanted to sorry, I did not save this file. Just give me a moment so that I'll just rewrite all of these things. Okay, yeah. So these are the two tasks that are created, and this is the description of the task. Now, once we have all of these things, okay, once we have two tasks here, once you have written the name of your playbook and then you have explained everything about your playbook, what you can do is just save this file. Okay, and now what we'll do is we will execute this playbook. To execute this playbook, previously we used the Ansible command, right? So Ansible command is used to run some Ansible commands. Whereas if you want to run Ansible playbooks, the command that you want to use is Ansible-playbook. Okay, so the difference between Ansible and Ansible playbook commands is that Ansible is used to run Ansible ad hoc commands, whereas Ansible playbook is used to run your Ansible playbook files that we have just written. Perfect. As always, provide the location of your inventory file. If your inventory file is in the default location, then you don't have to provide these details. Like, if you're using the /etc host Ansible file as your inventory file, then don't worry. The details will be automatically picked up. But always make sure that provide the inventory file in the location itself, so that it will be more convenient rather than using the default one. After that, provide the name of your playbook. Okay, the name of the playbook is first playbook.yaml. Now let's see the magic and let's also try to understand what is happening. Okay, first of all, click enter. Then it said that the first task that is executed is gathering facts. The second task that executed is install nginx, and the third task is start nginx. So what has happened? Firstly, gather facts. So gather facts is nothing but Ansible will try to get all the information of your target server. It will also see if is it able to authenticate without any password or not. Then it will get more details that are required on the target server. So this is the step that it gets executed irrespective of what playbook that you are writing. Okay, gather facts is the first task that gets executed. After that, install nginx. So install nginx is the task that we wrote. And what happens after that? Start nginx. Okay, so all the three tasks are passed. Let us see if nginx is installed here or not. So let's run the command sudo systemctl status nginx. Let us see what has happened. Perfect. It said that nginx is running. Okay, so we have done great job till now. What I would like to ask is everybody who are following this video, make sure that you practice these examples. Okay, one is the Ansible ad hoc command that I showed you, and also make sure you execute this same playbook that I have written. Okay, so it is very simple one. Follow the video, okay, and write the same playbook in the same order. Okay, and if you have any questions till now, I would like everybody to put that in the comment section. Perfect. So we understood what is happening here, but for the viewers, I wanted to show this in detail. So to understand what is happening within the Ansible, okay, what Ansible is doing internally, just add the verbose, okay, -v, and execute the, you can add 2v, 3v's, it only increases the verbosity within the Ansible. So if you add 3v's, that means Ansible prints whatever it is doing with highest verbosity. So what is verbosity? It basically means debug. Okay, so you will get the debug logs here. So previously we understood what was happening, just like Ansible created a server and all. But if you use verbose, if you want to understand Ansible in more detailed way, what Ansible is doing on the target server step by step, use the verbose option, and Ansible gives you everything, like what it has started to do. Firstly, when you executed this first playbook.yaml, it was searching for path on this Ubuntu server. Okay, and then it used some configuration options. After that, it started with this install nginx. Okay, where it gathered the facts. The playbook name is install nginx. It gathered the facts. See, it is trying to establish the SSH connection. Okay, so it said that okay, SSH connection was established successfully. Once it established the SSH connection, then it was looking for some Python related stuff. Okay, because Ansible by default uses Python. Okay, then it also found that what is gatherfacts doing? It is doing all of these things. One is the SSH connection. One is the if your target server has all the dependencies that are required, Python dependencies that are required to execute. And once that is done, it will start with the see. There is lot of information. It will start with the install nginx, and even in the install nginx, for each and every task, what is it doing, how is it trying to establish the connection, and what has happened. See, it also gave you the JSON file which indicates what has the things that it has done. So it has installed a package for you called nginx, and it used apt to do that. Did it force? No, it just used the apt. It did not use any force. And then uh, depackage options, everything is present here. Okay, so to learn Ansible in a better way, use the verbose option, and that is what I did when I started to learn Ansible in the very first things, because I also wanted to write my own Ansible modules. So right now I'm only explaining you to how to execute your Ansible playbooks, but as I told you, you can always contribute to Ansible and write your own Ansible modules. So to understand that, you need to understand what Ansible is doing internally. So for that, use the verbosity option. Perfect. So what we have done, we have also executed our first Ansible playbook. Now, what are the next things to learn in Ansible? Once you learn this, you need to understand that, okay, so I wrote my Ansible playbook and this is looking very simple. I learned Ansible completely. No, the reason here is this is a very basic installation, right? We just installed nginx and we just started the nginx service. But there are cases where you want to use your Ansible playbooks to configure your Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so this is a very classic example. Let me tell you what I wanted to what usually people do in real-time organizations. Let's say kubernetes.yaml. Okay, so the task here is create 3 EC2 instances on AWS. Okay, and configure one of those EC2 instances as master and configure 2 other EC2 instances as worker. Okay, so what is the task? Create 3 EC2 instances on AWS, configure 1 EC2 instance as master, and configure 2 EC2 instances as worker. So for that, what usually people or what usually DevOps engineers does is for this, we use Terraform. Okay, and for the 2 other tasks, we use Ansible. So this is done using Ansible, and this is also done using Ansible. So people might ask, can't we do this using Ansible? We can do that. Okay, so we can always do the installation or stuff like creation using Ansible as well. But Terraform is a tool that is specifically designed for that purposes. Okay, you can create EC2 instances using Ansible as well. It's like, for example, if you want to purchase movie tickets, okay, you can do it through Book My Show as well, and you can do it through Paytm as well. But you would always go for the best option, right? So the best option here in this case is Terraform. So Terraform is an infrastructure management tool, or it's an infrastructure as code tool. So that's why whenever you wanted to create anything with respect to infrastructure, go with Terraform. So DevOps engineers usually create these EC2 instances using Terraform and perform these 2 actions using Ansible. Now these 2 actions cannot be written in one simple playbook, right? For example, if you look at our first playbook.yaml, this has only 2 tasks. But if you want to configure both your Kubernetes control plane as well as your Kubernetes data plane, or master as well as your worker nodes, your playbook will become very huge. Okay, so almost you will have some 50 to 60 tasks. And if you start writing this entire 50 to 60 tasks in one playbook.yaml file, it will be impossible to read. Okay, so for that very own reason, what Ansible has done, and there will be a lot of variables and there will be a lot of configuration files, you have to handle some errors, right? To avoid that specific kind of problems, what Ansible has done is it has come up with a concept called Ansible roles. Okay, what is that? Ansible roles. Now, what is Ansible roles? So Ansible roles is nothing but, like, in a very simple terminology, if I have to explain you Ansible roles is efficient way of writing Ansible playbooks that will only improve your efficiency to write complex playbooks. Okay, the best example that you can do that you can give is whenever some interviewer is asking you this question, you can simply explain them that, okay, let's say I want to configure Kubernetes using Ansible. So it will have close to some 50 to 60 tasks, and you have a lot of variables, you have a lot of parameters, you have certificates, right? You have secrets that you have to configure while creating this Kubernetes cluster. So for that very own reason, if you try to do it with rules, like, you can segregate each and everything and you can properly structure your Ansible playbooks. So that's why the concept of rules is introduced. So if you want to start playing with rules, okay, what you can simply do is you can use this command called Ansible Galaxy, okay, and then you can say initialize, okay, Ansible Galaxy role. Init stands for initialize, and just start saying that I want to create a role for Kubernetes. Okay, so let me create a folder for this. Before that, okay, so this is my second playbook. For example, my second playbook is to configure Kubernetes. So what I'll do is I'll do Ansible hyphen Galaxy role init Kubernetes. Now let us see what happens. As you execute this command, okay, what happened is Ansible said that role Kubernetes was created successfully. What is that? Let me do ls. So if you see ls, if you do ls, you'll see that there is a folder called Kubernetes that is created. Let me open that folder and see what is inside that. Okay, ls Kubernetes. Okay, you will see bunch of files that are created for you. This is the concept of roles. Okay, if you do ls-ltr and see what is inside each and every folder, okay, so whenever you execute this command, Ansible creates you bunch of files and folders. Okay, and using these files and folders you can structure your Ansible playbooks. Okay, so you have templates, you have files, you have readme where you can explain what this playbook is and what are the roles and responsibilities of this playbook. You can create tasks, like previously we used to write tasks in the playbook.yaml, right? Whereas here you will use the tasks, and then you have handlers, you have tests, vars, defaults, and meta. I'll explain you each and every of these things, don't worry. But till now what I wanted to explain you is that whenever you want to write some complicated playbooks, okay, what you would do is you will start using the Ansible Galaxy command to create roles. And what happens if you create roles is you can write structured and efficient Ansible playbooks. Okay, so to write this entire playbooks in this live session, it will get slightly complicated. So that's the reason why I have put everything on my GitHub repository. Okay, so if you see here, this is my GitHub repository. I already know that most of you are following me on GitHub, and if you are not, then I have the link in the description. Don't worry, you can go and click on that GitHub and you will see a repository called Ansible Examples. So I forked this from Ansible Examples, but I would recommend you to follow this repository, not the parent one, because my goal is to keep updating this Ansible repository with more examples so that whenever I create a new example, you can watch for it. For example, today there is no Kubernetes example here. I don't have any Kubernetes example that is stored in this repository. So in future, I'll add that thing so that you can basically watch for it. So for example, here, there are bunch of playbooks, right? So let's say that I want to look for JBoss standalone. Okay, I want to install a JBoss server and I want to configure the JBoss server. So what you will do is, instead of writing everything inside the playbook.yaml, like this is the playbook.yaml file. So the YAML file that is present at the parent level or at the top of your folder is your parent playbook.yaml. That is the same as we wrote here. Okay, so if you remember, we wrote something called as first playbook.yaml, right? So this is the site.yaml. Site.yaml is your parent playbook.yaml in this case. Okay, what did I provide? I just provided the name of the host, and then I said that everything else you can find in the role. Okay, so previously what we used to write what is the name of this playbook, what are the hosts, and then we used to write tasks here itself, right? Instead, what we do is whenever we are writing roles, we just segregate and we say that, okay, this is the host, and if you want to look at the tasks and other details, just find it in the roles folder. And what is the roles folder? JBoss standalone. Okay, let us see what is there in the JBoss standalone folder. Okay, go to the roles, and inside roles you have JBoss standalone. Okay, if you go to JBoss standalone, then we have all of these files and folders, right? So whenever you do by default, you get bunch of things if you don't require some of these things. For example, here second playbook, and inside this I have Kubernetes cd second playbook. Okay, and inside this cd Kubernetes. So here you have bunch of these things, right? So if you, let's say you don't want readme.yaml, let's say you don't want defaults, you can delete them, no worries. Okay, so here you have files, handlers, tasks, and templates. So inside the task, we write everything that is related to this task.yaml. Okay, that is all the tasks. So previously we used to write everything on the parent playbook.yaml, but to segregate and to make things better, what you do is you create a role, and inside the role you write all of these tasks. Perfect. So this is how you segregate and improve the efficiency. But what are the other files and folders here? Okay, I explained you what is task, but what is this files? What is this folders? What is this templates? So let me explain you that as well. Like for example, okay, so this is the entire structure, right? You have templates, you have files, you have tasks, you have handlers, tests, vars, defaults, and meta. Let's start with meta. So meta is basically used to write some metadata information inside this file. For example, let's say I want to provide what are the details of this entire playbook. What is this entire playbook doing? So in such cases, you can provide the metadata information, and also you can provide the licensing information. That is, in the future, let's say you want to share this playbooks or share this entire playbook plus role uh, to the community. Okay, Ansible Galaxy community. So in such cases, what you can do is you can write the entire information, like, you know, this playbook I have written for the open source purpose, and I want to share it. And if anybody wants to use it for commercial purpose, it is not allowed. Okay, so such things you provide in the meta folder. After that, you have defaults. Okay, defaults is basically used to store some variable kind of things. Like for example, if you go to defaults today and open the main.yaml, so default file for Kubernetes. Okay, you can store some variables, and you can do the same thing with vars folder and also group vars folder. I'll explain you what is the difference between each of them in the interview questions. Don't worry. And then there is test folder. So test is just like any other test that you write. Even if you're writing shell scripts, or even if you're writing Python scripts, you basically add some unit tests, right? So that is similar here. And then you have handlers. Handlers is basically for handling some kind of exception. Let's say while you're starting Nginx server in our previous example, we ran into some error. So using the handlers, what you can do is you can either send some mail notifications, or you can say that whenever this Nginx server is failing to start, there is no purpose of installing Nginx itself, so delete the Nginx also. Okay, so this sort of things you can handle. So a handler is basically the situations that you want to handle. Then task, I don't have to explain it. I know that you all are familiar with task by now. And readme.md, so basically you can explain our viewers, or whoever are watching this repositories, you can tell them that what is the content of this Ansible playbooks, what we stored in this Ansible playbooks and all. Then files, you can store some files, like for example, you have some certificates, or you have some basic example is, let's say you have some index.html, and you want to pass this index.html. Okay, so in such cases you can use files as well. Like for example, you want to pass the index.html onto the task. Okay, you want to copy the index.html from here to another machine. So using the files folder, you can store them and you can pass. So template is for basic templating, right? So Ansible uses the Jinja 2 templating, and if you want to use anything related to this templates, you can store in the templates folder. Perfect. So this is about your Ansible structure and why Ansible roles are used. So you can take a reference or take a look at these files and folders that I stored in my GitHub repository. Like I told you, there are bunch of examples. Okay, so you can start looking at them. But before that, what you need to do is you have to be acquainted with Ansible ad hoc commands. You have to start writing your first Ansible playbooks, and then I also showed you how to establish passwordless authentication and all of these things. Get familiar with them as well. After that, go to this roles concept and implement Ansible roles. For that, you can pick any of the example that I have here. Best start with the JBoss standalone. Okay, if you have any questions with this JBoss standalone, if you tried and if it doesn't work, you can let me know. But pretty sure this will work because these are all tested playbooks. Even myself have tested some of these playbooks, so they'll definitely work. Now, if you want to learn more about the Ansible interview questions, don't worry, I've already done a video on it. Just to not stretch this video and to repeat the same content, I'll put the link in the description. I have put 18 most asked Ansible interview questions. Okay, 18 Ansible interview questions and their answers. So it covers all of these topics. It covers roles, it covers handlers, it covers some complicated scenario based questions on Ansible. So watch that video so that you get clear understanding of what are the interview questions that people can ask on Ansible. Apart from this, if you have any questions, if you want me to do more videos on Ansible, if you fail to understand some topics on Ansible, do let me know in the comment section and I'll definitely do a video for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like the video, click on the like button. And if you have someone who wants to learn Ansible, please share this video with them. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone. Bye.